Over time, many famous quotes have gone from being profound reflections to becoming misinterpreted or distorted slogans, whether due to changes in context, the passage of time, or even the convenience of those who use them. In this video, we'll analyze 8 popular quotes that, although we hear them all the time, often don't mean what we think. Let's uncover their true meaning together. 1. The ends justify the means, generally attributed to Nicholas Machiavelli. Many people understand this quote as an excuse to act unethically, justifying any immoral, harmful, or corrupt action under the premise that the end result is the only important thing. This misinterpretation omits the critical reflection that Machiavelli intended. In its original context, the phrase implies that in order to achieve certain larger goals, such as the stability of the state or the general welfare, methods may be necessary that are not always considered morally correct. However, Machiavelli was not advocating the use of any means indiscriminately, but rather a pragmatic analysis where actions were justified if they led to the common good or the preservation of power in critical situations. 2. Hell is other people, Jean-Paul Sartre. The quote from Jean-Paul Sartre's play, Huis Clos, is often misinterpreted as a cynical dismissal of human relationships, implying that other people are inherently toxic or unbearable. However, in its proper existentialist context, it reflects a much more nuanced idea about identity and self-perception. Sartre uses the line to illustrate how our relationships with others can become a kind of hell when we allow their judgments, expectations, and perceptions to define who we are. In the play, the characters are trapped together, not physically tortured, but psychologically tormented by each other's gaze and opinions. This underscores Sartre's idea of the look, where being observed by another person can make us feel objectified, stripped of our freedom to define ourselves, and trapped within the roles they assign to us. The hell is not the existence of others, but our dependence on their validation, our tendency to seek ourselves in their reflections instead of taking full responsibility for our own identity. Far from dismissing relationships, Sartre's statement challenges us to navigate them without surrendering our autonomy or sense of self. 3. Nice guys finish last, Leo Durocher. People often misinterpret this quote because it seems to suggest that being kind or good-hearted automatically makes you weak or unsuccessful, especially in competitive situations. This oversimplification turns the phrase into a cynical statement about life, implying that only selfish or ruthless people win. However, the original context wasn't about kindness being bad, but about how, in competition, being too nice or passive might hold you back if you're not assertive enough to take opportunities or stand your ground. Over time, the phrase got stripped of its nuance and started being used as a blanket excuse for failure or frustration, especially in relationships or business. In reality, the issue isn't about being nice, but about balancing kindness with confidence and action. 4. Blood is thicker than water, John Ray. The quote is often misunderstood as meaning that family ties are always stronger and more important than any other relationships, such as friendships or partnerships. However, the original version of the saying was longer and very different. The blood of the covenant is thicker than the water of the womb. This older version suggests that chosen bonds, like friendships or agreements, can be stronger than the ties we are born into, like family. Over time, the shortened version has been widely used to emphasize loyalty to family above all else, ignoring its deeper meaning. This misunderstanding reflects how people simplify complex ideas, losing the original context and intent behind the words. 5. Good fences make good neighbors, Robert Frost. The quote from Robert Frost's poem, Mending Wall, is often misinterpreted as a straightforward endorsement of boundaries and separation between people. Many take it to mean that physical and emotional barriers are necessary to maintain harmony in relationships. However, in the poem, Frost presents this idea with a tone of skepticism, questioning whether fences truly bring people closer or simply reinforce division. The speaker in the poem reflects on the absurdity of building a wall where it serves no real purpose, like separating an orchard from a pine forest. The phrase itself is repeated by the speaker's neighbor, suggesting a rigid adherence to tradition rather than thoughtful consideration. People misinterpret this line because they take it out of context, ignoring Frost's subtle critique of blindly maintaining boundaries without questioning their necessity. The poem ultimately challenges us to rethink whether walls or fences truly make us better neighbors or simply keep us apart. 6. Religion is the opium of the masses. Karl Marx. This quote, written by Karl Marx, is often misunderstood because people interpret it as a complete rejection or condemnation of religion. Many assume Marx meant that religion is purely harmful or manipulative, but his original context reveals a more nuanced perspective. In his critique of Hegel's philosophy of right, 1844, Marx uses the metaphor of opium to describe how religion provides comfort and relief to those suffering under oppressive systems. Just as opium dulls physical pain, religion soothes the emotional and spiritual pain caused by social and economic injustices. The misunderstanding comes from ignoring the fact that Marx wasn't attacking religion itself, but the conditions that make people rely on it. He argued that religion, while comforting, could distract people from addressing the root causes of their suffering and maintain the status quo. The oversimplification of this phrase erases its deeper critique of the systems that perpetuate inequality. 7. Curiosity killed the cat. The quote is often misunderstood because it is commonly seen as a warning against being too inquisitive or asking too many questions, implying that curiosity leads to trouble. However, the original expression, which is longer, "Curiosity killed the cat, but satisfaction brought it back," offers a much more nuanced message. The full quote acknowledges that while curiosity can sometimes lead to risky situations or undesirable outcomes, it also brings rewards, discoveries, and satisfaction when the answers or results are found. People tend to overlook the second part of the saying, which balances the first, and therefore interpret it as a simple caution against curiosity. This simplification causes the phrase to lose its true meaning, that curiosity, while potentially dangerous, is also an essential part of growth and learning, and the benefits often outweigh the risks. 8. My country wrong or right? Carl Schurz. This quote is often misunderstood because it is frequently interpreted as a call for blind loyalty to one's country, suggesting that people should support their nation unconditionally, regardless of its actions. However, the phrase, originally used by Carl Schurz in the 19th century, was not meant to promote unquestioning loyalty. Schurz's intent was more nuanced. He expressed that even when a country is wrong, citizens have a duty to work for its improvement and correction, not abandon it. The misunderstanding arises from the way the phrase is often quoted without its full context. People tend to overlook the idea that the phrase was about loyalty in the sense of responsibility and commitment to improve one's country, rather than blind patriotism. By focusing on the first part of the phrase and ignoring the deeper implications, people misinterpret it as a justification for supporting all actions of the state, when in reality it advocates for critical loyalty, where citizens work to correct the mistakes of their country while still standing by it. Now, as a bonus, let's look at the quote in the thumbnail of this video. Money is the root of all evil. This quote is often misunderstood because people tend to interpret it as a blanket condemnation of money itself, suggesting that wealth and financial success inherently lead to immoral or unethical behavior. However, the actual quote from the Bible, "For the love of money is the root of all evil," 1 Timothy 6:10, carries a much more specific and nuanced message. It isn't the money itself that is the problem, but the excessive desire or obsession with it. Money is simply a tool for exchange and value, and in its proper place, it can be used for good purposes. The quote warns against placing money at the center of one's life, allowing it to become an idol or a driving force behind one's decisions and actions. The misunderstanding comes from quoting the phrase out of context, which leads to the false idea that money itself is evil, rather than recognizing that it's the greed and the unhealthy attachment to wealth that can lead to unethical behavior. By simplifying the quote, people overlook the deeper message about priorities and the dangers of placing too much value on material wealth. That's all for today's video. If you liked it, share it with a friend. Thanks for making it to the end.